Here in the heart of Lakeland, Florida is a place where creatives can come and tell their story through song. Using lyrics, notes on an instrument, and a collaborative approach to creating, creatives come to local recording studio, Soundhouse Studios, to record what could be the next hit single. Today's creative individual is Jonathan Gautier, owner of Soundhouse Studios.
Hi, this is Jonathan Gautier from Soundhouse Studios. Come on in and take a look at my space. I started playing music really young. I was 5 years old when I started taking piano lessons. I won't go into too much detail, but I started when I was 5 taking piano lessons. My parents were super supportive. They've always been supportive. So like I kind of stuck with playing the piano, even when there was times where I didn't want to keep having lessons. They wanted me to be in something that can, help me to have some discipline, start having something that could be my own thing.
Right.
And where we live, sports wasn't really wasn't easily accessible. So there was somebody that they knew that could teach me how to play the piano. So I would go over to their house. And then that kind of stayed with me. I mean, I picked up other instruments, but I will always tell people that piano is my first and foremost. So this room is the control room. It's kind of homey, kind of small, but I run Studio One. I'll move my big chair. And then this is kind of the setup here. Just run a couple of Apollos. I have some warm audio pre's that I really like to use. They're kind of almost hardwired for drums because I love that sound on drums. I went to a performing arts school, K through 8 school, Rochelle, and I picked up the cello, and so I was in the orchestra, so I got to learn how to play the cello, which I always thought was really cool. I continued to still play piano, continued to still have lessons, and then after middle school, I auditioned for a performing arts high school here, Harrison, and I got accepted into the piano department. So I kind of was on this trajectory where I was playing a lot of classical music. That kind of catapulted me into being I want to be a performer of some sort.
Right.
And the instrument that I have is the piano. And then we have a window on that side. That leads into the live room. And then over here, we're gonna keep this as a window. And these are kind of the projects that people are working on, just some of them that I've had this week so far. But there's also a window here so that when people decide that they're gonna record on that side, and we can hook up to this and they can have that space. One of my friends was like, well, since you kind of know how to play the cello, I have this bass and you can kind of just pick it up. And I really do believe that because I know how to play the piano, I could play a lot of other instruments, or at least hold my own. But I was always next to the mixer. I was always next to the mixing board. Okay. Because a lot of places that we played at were really small.
Was that locally around here you guys were playing?
Yeah, locally around here. And we have a little music scene here in Lakeland. And I was always the one that was told hey, can you turn up my microphone? I can't hear myself. And so since I was right next to it, I'd just be okay, here you go. Mm-hmm. And that kind of interested me. And I started dabbling with recording probably 16, 17 years old. I had a cassette tape, little 4-track mixer, and what I would do is I would make mixtapes and overdub things over them and try to and it was mostly to practice. I wanted to learn how to play guitar, so I would have this tape and I would try to practice the guitar, and what I thought would be cool to be able to record myself to listen back to see if whether or not it sounded good. Right. And most of the time it sounded like trash, but that's okay. But what was cool was I think I was starting to get into what it was like to record but not really being like, I want to record. I've got a couple of 511s here. I love these pre's. They're kind of remind me of like 1073s, a little bit cleaner. I would probably say more modern. We've got, every studio should have some 560 compressors. They're just kind of a cool, easy way to learn about compression. When I met with one of the music teachers at Harrison, who happened to like, you know, counsel students as, you know, when they become seniors and try to figure out, okay, like, oh, so you want to do this? This might be the school that gives you the opportunity to do that. They had told me that like, maybe what you should go into is like audio production or music production, and here are the schools that you should apply to. And so like I applied to them. I actually ended up choosing University of Central Florida because when I went there, they had their digital music production class was part of the School of Digital Media, which had like all of these tracks. And they were connected to the School of Film. And I thought, oh, that could get me into many areas of audio production. I've actually had this bus compressor for a while. It's called a JDK R22. It was a compressor that was bought by the company API. The audio JDK was bought by API. So it kind of has some of the same components as a 2500.
Okay.
So kind of has a little bit of like punch to it. Not as aggressive. I really like using it on bass, like on the bass group. There was a semester where instead of using part of my scholarship to buy books, I bought recording equipment and just went to the library.
Right.
and studied from there. I never got to do just music production. It was like audio production for anything. In fact, like that's how the studio really started, was like I just recorded anything and everything.
When you're looking to lay down your tracks, there's many different digital audio workstations to choose from. From the start, Jonathan chose the professional recording software Pro Tools.
I guess the reason was because it was like that's the industry standard.
Right. Even
though like I had a Mac computer, I actually had Logic on it, and for whatever reason, I just didn't use it. Which is strange because like I teach courses in Logic now. And now I don't even, like, my main DAW is Studio One that I use now. I used Pro Tools for, better part of 15, 20 years. And I felt like I was like a pro user too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I knew all the tricks. I knew all the different like editing things, the mixing things, how to create like custom automations and stuff like that. And I mean, it was the first DAW that, you know, I used to be able to make money from recording. And so I literally would record in my dorm room. I had a small amp that was put in the closet, and I had an SM57, and that's how I recorded that. And then we had in our dorm room, like the beds that would sit really high so you can put your dresser in. And so that was the booth, so that I draped over a comforter.
Pillows up.
And so that was the vocal booth. And then I had a Casio keyboard that didn't have any MIDI capabilities. It was a keyboard that my parents bought from Sam's, and it had like, you know, pre-programmed drum machine stuff, and that's how I would make music. Because my whole goal when I first started was I'm going to learn how to record myself and to be my own record label. That's my Apollo Twin. That's kind of what we use as our monitor controller. It actually is connected to the snake out there, so we can record. Like, you can record using the two channels back here. For the longest time, I had it like permanently like hooked up to the Sphere. So that way we can record using that microphone. So when I graduated, I got really scared, and I was like, Mom, Dad, what do? I can't find a job. I have applied to probably every single recording studio that I could find online or find in the phone book in and around the Orlando area, which I thought certainly, like, it should be easy because, like, you know, this is where Disney is, there's a lot of tourism and stuff like that, and I quickly found out that it's more those kind of things, Disney, Universal, here at least, are more geared towards the tourism side rather than the production side. All of their production stuff is in California.
When Jonathan graduated, full-time work was hard to come by, so he went to the advice of his parents.
My parents told me that you should go ahead and just go back to school. Now, I did get an internship. I did end up landing that, and that was like in the 11th hour almost. And that was at Disney Entertainment. That was a music business internship, which was interesting. I hadn't taken any business classes. I was purely music production, and now I'm in an internship where they're talking about things like licensing and publishing, and basically my like day-to-day at Disney Entertainment was to pull from a catalog of music, and obviously Disney's catalog is vast, and to kind of cut, splice, mash up parts of songs for their advertising, like for their commercials, or there was a lot of vocal editing for like announcements that were made in the park, things that you don't really pay attention to at the park, but they're like all around you, like the different sound effects. I really like the Fade Report because I can use it for multiple DAWs. Like, it's actually really good for Logic.
I like that one.
Yeah. I like it a lot for Logic. So whenever I'm flipping between Studio One and Logic, it's really easy to like flip the fader mode. They put me with the main engineer, Dan Fontana, and so I would help him with his like editing things, and I got to go out to the different recording studios and see how Disney would outsource a lot of their work to just, you know, neighboring studios. So that was cool. And meanwhile, during that time, I was still like trying to find like employment. I ended up going back to UCF and getting my master's shortly after, and trying to figure that out. And then I became a teacher.
Not much about audio recording was learned while he was a teacher, but there was one thing he learned from his students that helped him out along his professional journey.
Both my parents are teachers, and they were like, and they convinced me that like if you just teach so that you can have a full-time job, you can have some benefits, and like, you know, kind of get your feet off the ground, what you should do is do that and then have your studio kind of be like a side hustle thing. And so what I would do is on the weekends or at nighttime, I would record people, and I would try to like, I would be out there hustling. It went from feeling like I wasn't going in the right direction to, wow, I'm learning a lot of things that are helping me to become a people person. And I really do think that when you are a teacher and you have to teach kids, especially young kids, and you have to have them connect to what it is that you're doing, it's kind of the same thing in a recording environment. Like when I'm working with a client, like we have to talk to them sometimes. And this is not to say that clients are children, but right. You know, when they come to you, when a client comes to you with their song, it's like their most vulnerable, it's like their baby. And so like they're coming to you at a very vulnerable thing. Children come to you at their most vulnerable state. And so to get them to connect, I learned how to do that by talking with children, which was great. My monitors are PreSonus Aries, the original ones. I was gonna actually get different monitors, but in a shootout with the monitors that I was gonna buy versus these that were like half the price, these actually were at the same quality. And obviously, you know, yes, it's a recording studio, but like I do have to keep it affordable. Towards the end, I was really feeling called to like take a huge step and be like, I don't think I want to teach anymore. Like, I mean, I enjoy it, but I don't love it. And at the time, there was a lot of things going on. It was never the kids. It's never the kids.
Right.
It's never the kids. It's always something else. And most of us that are educators know what that something else is.
Do you have a subwoofer? Or do you just
I do
use
have
the
a
monitors?
subwoofer, but I don't use it in this room. And the reason why I don't use it in this room is because the room is kind of small. And so like, we don't really need the bass response.
Okay.
The subwoofer is it's like a KRK Rocket 10 or Rocket 20 or something like that. It's a big one. I think the push for me was that I was hitting a ceiling as having the studio be a side hustle, and the ceiling was that, yeah, your stuff sounds good and all that, but I'm still going to somebody's house. Yeah, like that's cool and all, like the music sounds great, but like I just don't feel comfortable going over to somebody's house. I don't know if the quality is there because it's a home studio. And I that was the biggest adversity that I was met with early on, was that nobody would take me seriously because it's a home studio. But I was making some money. It's just that I was hitting a ceiling where prospective clients didn't want to come to a house. And so I was like, well, I think it's time that I look for a space. And I felt really called to I think it's time for me to do this full time.
One of the hardest parts about starting your own business is trying to find your first clients. Jonathan took to a creative approach by going to Facebook.
This was a form of basically I Facebook stalked people. I would look at my friends. I would see what kind of music that they were listening to, and if I knew that they were kind of like in the know of like musicians here, I would look at what concerts they went to, and then what I would do is I would reach out via like Facebook Messenger.
Okay.
And be like, hey, I like your music. I would love to talk to you about like doing a project and this or that. And I think I would spend hours. I think I would be on my break too when I was still a teacher, like just messaging people. And I think for like every 100 people that I would message, I'd probably get two to five back. So that was soul crushing. Oh, my MIDI controller is an Arturia Keylab. I really love Arturia products. It has a good feel. It's actually kind of heavy for a controller. And I have all of it mapped out for doing a lot of composition work. I do a lot of strings, a lot of virtual music production, because like that's what people usually hire me to do. Something happened when I was my last year teaching. It was a tough season at school, and I was talking to my mom about it. I was just voicing my frustrations, and my mom was like, why don't you quit? And I was like, wait, you can do that? Literally, that was my response. You can do that? And she was like, yeah, I mean, like, I'm retiring. She was retiring, man.
Okay.
She's like, I'm retiring, so like, no big deal, right? And so her thing was that she told me, you come home angry. We had found out that we were pregnant with our first kid. You're coming home angry now. Like, that's just no environment to raise a child. Like, even if you are like making money and things like that and being okay, like, you're not happy. Like, you want that child to know what it's like to be happy.
Right.
And so when she said that, like, it was like a weight that lifted off of me. And like, that was like in the middle of that year, the last year that I taught. So the rest of the year I was like, I'm gonna do what I want. It doesn't even matter. So I guess we can start like this way.
Yep. So
this is like the baby of the live room, of the studio in general. This is my acoustic baby grand. It's a Young Chang. What I found out from the piano tuner that comes in and tunes this was made in the same factory as the Yamaha C series, which is like a famous, like, that's like their concert grands. So this has that same kind of Yamaha sound.
Yeah.
So kind of deep, dark. The end of that year, wasn't coming back, and I started looking for places. Like I started looking for buildings to rent, and I always drove past this building, and I was always like, wow, it would be cool to like be in downtown. And at the time, like mind you, this is about 10 plus years ago, like this was pretty dead. Like law offices, banks, but I had seen this place vacant pretty much. Like I had not seen anybody go in there. So we looked at a couple of places. There was actually a place that was closer to Munn Park, the center, that was going to offer $250. I remember $250 a room, and I was like, I need 2 rooms. Like one is a control room, one is a live room, and they were decent size rooms. Not crazy, but like enough to be like, oh, okay. And the guy was like really like, yeah, it would be cool to have a studio here. Well, the guy ghosted me for about 4 months. And so I needed a place because it was like, well, I have clients. That's what I said. I have clients that are waiting. And so now it was down to 2. It was this place. It was 113 South Florida. And then it was the building that is right next to the Tropical Smoothie. On a whim, I noticed that this building on the side had a thing that said for lease, Lorio and Associates. And so I called the number. And I was like, hey, I'm interested in renting out a space, at 113 South Florida. It looks like there was a photography studio. Is it possible to look at that space? So we meet up here and we're talking, and I look around and I'm like, this place it looks like a bomb went off in here. He was like, well, this space is going to be good for you because the law office, that's not their main branch. Their main branch is in Winter Haven. And so they're hardly ever here. So you're not going to have to worry about them so much. What sold it to me was, all the way down the hall, there's a kitchen. And so there's a lot of these, like this whole top floor has windows just like this all the way around. And so there's a window, and out of that window, you can see the Polk Theater sign. It's lighting up. And like, I was just like, this is so cool. Like I'm in downtown. Yeah. And like, this is where I want to be. Like, I just feel it. And my dad was like, okay, all right. Do you got any money for this? And I was like, no, I don't. He's like, you mean you can't pay first, because they wanted first, last, and security deposit. And I was like, I don't have the money. I just said yes. And my dad, like, he paid for my lease agreement. I always remember my dad saying, and it's like the caption on all my handles, all my social media handles, where he says like, the world needs dreamers, and our son just happens to be a dreamer. That is the reason why I'm successful. A lot of people say, well, it's because of all of these credits and da 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 da. I said, no, the reason why I'm successful is because of the support, the family support and the support system that I have. Because like there have been many times where it has been like the darkest moments, and it's like they just show up. And it may be, yes, they show up financially, not so much anymore, because like I have learned how to be smarter. But it's the moments where they say like, hang in there, like you got this, and like don't worry, like we're gonna be here for you. And honestly, the first 5-6 years here was a nightmare, like financially. I was constantly in the red. Like I couldn't make it. There's so many times where I should have failed. And there were so many bad decisions that I made financially. That's why I really feel like Lakeland actually is a pretty good place to start a business. Not because you can fail and fail, but you don't have to feel the pressure of like, oh my gosh, if I mess up, that's it, I'm done. And then fast forward a little bit, start getting traction, right? Getting more bands. I'm starting to meet people. Those people are telling me, telling more other people about me. So I'm starting to finally get this like traction going, and finally making smart business decisions.
Jonathan received an unexpected email, but it led to a potentially big client.
I get an email from somebody, had no idea who this person was, and he said that he was visiting family from Winter Haven. He's from Brooklyn, and unfortunately, I can't go back. The New York is shut down. I hear you have a professional recording facility. Are you able to record? And I almost blew him off because I was looking for something big. I was like, I need big projects.
So you didn't know who this guy was?
I had no idea who he was. And his name is Robert Hecht, or he likes to be called Bobby Hawk. He's a violinist. And I was like, I don't really record violin that much, but okay, fine, whatever. And he was haggling the price too. And I was like, that was kind of like, for me, I was like, if people haggle the price, then I'm not really interested. And so like, I was like, well, fine, whatever. Studio's not being used, so
right.
Let's go ahead.
Make some money.
Yeah, I gotta make, even if it's just hourly, because he was looking for just hourly. So no producing, no nothing, and I was like, okay, fine, whatever. So currently, as of right now, this room is the lounge. But for future, I want it to be, this is gonna turn into the songwriting room, the songwriting space. So it's away from the studio, it has a lot more light. Guy comes in, he records his own music. He sounds phenomenal. He's amazingly talented, amazingly gifted. And so I was like, at first, I was like not really paying attention. But then like when he would play, I'd be like, wow, that was really good. Like, you're amazing. And he's like, oh, well, thank you. Well, every once in a while, like, I'll get projects, like, to work on. Like, if you're interested, like, I'll just bring those projects here. Every once in a while, I'll get something from... And he would mention names. And at the time, I didn't put, like, two and two together. And so he kept saying, like, I'm, like, friends with Jack Antonoff and things like that. And I had not put... Like, I did not, like, make the connection. I was like, oh, you mean the guy from Bleachers? Which I was like, hey, that's a pretty cool band. And so every once in a while he'd get this call or this text saying, hey, I need you to record. And so he would text me and be like, hey, like, this is like short notice. People like to jam out here. Like, this, this is my this was my gigging keyboard that I've had before I got married. This is what I would play at church. This is what I would bring to, and it's heavy. It would just be interesting because like he would not know what these songs were. He would have to play right on the spot. He might have a couple of references, but I would say a good maybe 50 to 75% of the times he would just have to play right on the spot. Like learn the song right then and there, improvise, and go. So then after a couple of times of doing this, he texted me. It was the middle of the night, and he was like, sorry to bother you, but I just wanted you to know that one of the songs that we just tracked violin for is a Taylor Swift song. And I was like, haha, yeah, right, whatever. And he was like, no, I'm serious. Like, the album is gonna be dropping tonight, and it's folklore. We were on the song August, which ended up being one of the bigger songs. And so that had never happened to me before. I didn't know how to take it. In fact, I really didn't react all that much because I was going through so much stress of there was the whole home situation thing, home buying situation thing. It never really dawned on me like what we just did until much farther after. It started off small, but then she wins like artist of, she wins album of the year. And then I get an email saying, congratulations on your Grammy. And I was like, what? What?
Didn't even know I was getting one.
I was like, yeah. I was like, I like when I saw the Grammys, I was like, oh, that's really cool. She won. Hey, and I put on my post, hey, like an album that an album that I'm on, like, had just won album of the year at the Grammys. Isn't that cool? And she had performed August at the Grammys, so that was kind of cool. And then from there, it kept going. Like, I kept getting these songs, and then it would be kind of a game almost, like, okay, who are we recording for now? And yeah, it was more Taylor Swift, it was Bleachers, it was Lorde, Florence and the Machine, Clairo, Diana Ross. And I'm like, what? This is all happening to me and to him? This is actually my favorite room. Because like this is where I kind of like get a little bit of inspo by looking out the window. Like this is, you can see all downtown. Honestly, like that shifted my entire trajectory. Like I always wanted to know what it felt like to win a Grammy of some sort, like in some way. And to be able to be like, wow, they keep coming back and being like, we want to use Bobby. And he's like, yeah, we'll keep doing it at Soundhouse. That, it blew my mind. And I didn't really, it's funny, like I didn't really think about those things until so Taylor Swift's album Midnights, I was super fortunate to be on like 5 of the songs. That was the most ever on an album that I've done for Taylor Swift. That was the first time I was like, yo, this is a big deal. Like, we should celebrate. But like, I think what it's done now is it's brought legitimacy to the craft that I do, as well as the engineers that are here at Soundhouse. It brings legitimacy to that. And that's important because like, I think for the longest time, producers, engineers, session musicians, they get devalued pretty hard in the name of whatever I can do to record cheap. And you know, while that's okay, like you can think like that, it's just that these people these amazing creative human beings that I've gotten to work with, there's no expense spared for the creativity. And I get it, like there's budgets and things like that, but like it really shows that they really value investing in themselves by going and investing in good quality people.
Home recording is more accessible than ever before, so why would one want to leave the comfort of their home to go off to a studio to record?
I would say the reason is that you can very well create high quality music at home. But there's always a give and a take. There's always a give and take. And the thing that you give is that you're not just the musician in that moment. You're the musician and the engineer and the mixer and imagine what it would be like if all you had to do was be the musician. You can be even more creative by just being who you are. Now, if you love that stuff, do it. If you're happy and you can record yourself and you can be and you know the technology and it's not hindering from your creativity, there's nothing wrong with recording at home. I will say this though, the people that do come into here and they invest in the full-blown like music production package and all that kind of stuff, they do it because they want to focus on their music, they want to focus on their story, they want to focus on their songwriting. And to have all this kind of stuff means that I am not 100% invested in my music, from a creative standpoint.
Right.
And so that's what I try to sell here, is that you can be you without having to be multiple versions of you. You can be the best you. You can choose to be, I'm gonna be the musician today. I'm gonna be the singer. I don't have to worry about what microphone choices. I don't have to worry about like, oh man, I did the take, it was amazing, and dang, when I got really dynamic, it clipped. Oh man, no, like I have to worry about it. If I mess up though, that's on me, man.
One of the greatest parts about recording in a professional recording studio is not so much the fancy tools that come along with it. It's more of the sense of community that you get when you go in and you work collaborative with other people.
When people come in, there's a sense of, oh, we're doing this together. Like there's a sense of community, you know? And to me, that's the biggest selling point of the studio is the feeling of, hey, we're gonna do this together. Like, the mission and vision of Soundhouse is to take the sound that's in your head and bring it out into the world because somebody needed to hear your story. Piano all day. Oh, that's a tough one. Okay, I'm gonna say this, but it's an indie band, but it's only because like it's one of the most influential bands for me personally. And he's gone by 3 different names.
Okay.
So he's called Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness.
Right, yeah.
Okay, but when I fell in love with his band was when it's Jack's Mannequin. That was, for me, that it's the same person. They just the different. He named him. He had different names for the different like creative seasons that he was in. But I mean, like those people who know, like that's Something Corporate. And Something Corporate was a very influential band for me because it was the first time that I heard punk music with a piano in it. And there was so much energy, and I was like, that's how I want to play. That's the music that I want. Oh, that's super easy. I'm black coffee. That's tough because like I don't ever think about that, so I'm gonna hit you with another like Jack's Mannequin. It's Winning was called Jack's Mannequin, and the album was called Everything in Transit. I am a microphone hoarder. So my favorite microphone currently is I'm gonna have to go with the warm audio version of the U67.
For those wanting to get into the music business, Jonathan has one last piece of final advice.
To understand, because I'm a realist, to understand it's gonna be hard, but in the end, hard work does pay off and people will see you for who you are and the work that you put in. Because as long as you continue to work on your craft and continue to keep bettering yourself, things will happen. It may not happen when you want it to, but eventually it'll happen because somebody needs to hear your story.